Tom, are you okay?
I lost her.
Her?
She was going to be this epic, trilogy-worthy character. I was going to be the hottest writer in Hollywood. But I can't get past Act 1!
You need some writers group therapy. Hello and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers. Are you ready for your session? The doctors are in. And we're so excited for February because we are going to launch an Instagram challenge. It's a great way
Woo!
to get to know you better, and you can get to know us better. And most importantly, you can get some pages written
And have fun doing it.
and have fun doing it. So join us in February. We're gonna launch a video and let you know a little bit more about it in a few weeks, but it'll be awesome.
Yep. All right.
Yay! So
On to the topic at hand.
speaking of awesome things, well, I don't know, it's kind of like you need to do it, but nobody likes it. Notes.
Dealing with notes.
Dealing with notes and notes etiquette. How to be a good notes giver and notes taker.
I like to give notes.
We all like to give notes. Do we like to get notes?
It's good to get notes, too. I have piles of scripts with notes on them that someday I'm going to go back and work on those.
I feel like when you get notes, the best thing to do is attack it immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they wind up in piles on your desk.
Hmm. And I feel like when you get notes, so I mean, there's so many ways we can talk about this topic. So let's talk about being a good notes giver first. How do you be a good
Okay.
notes giver?
Hmm. Well, you want to be you want to be honest. I think we coddle people a little too much, and when we give notes, we want to, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but at the same time, you want to help them become a better writer. So, like when I get notes, the notes I want to receive, I want them to be brutally honest because I don't want to send a script to somebody thinking that it's great because people didn't give me, critical notes that would have helped me improve it.
I agree with that. I mean, I like it when people are very direct with me about something they don't understand. And I've noticed too when I get notes, if I get the same note from multiple sources, then I'm like, this is something I gotta attack. For example, I was writing a rom-com and I remember you and I discussed this. One of the notes I kept getting was, gee, why is the main character so mean to her mother? And I thought, well, it's weird. I never thought she was mean. It's just kind of like the dynamic actually that I remember from growing up being Asian American, that whole like, look, mom, I brought home an A. Why is it not an A plus? To me it's not mean. That's just that pushing and that ambitious drive is what I'm used to. And people were like, wow, the characters are mean to each other. And I had to look at the script and go, are they mean? Is it a cultural thing? So I kind of softened it a little bit, but it was something that I really agonized over.
No, I've dealt with the same kind of, character questions like, am I not making my characters strong enough? People are like, well, he's supposed to be the bad guy, so he needs to be meaner, but I guess I'm not mean enough a person to make someone really mean. Um, so, when you get those kind of notes, you have to look at not just the context of the story, but as yourself as a writer, are you really pushing yourself to, really understand your characters and then make them, you know, fit the character they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
So you have to get out of your own head in some places. So and you have to do that when you take notes too. You have to know that people aren't trying to like tell you you're a horrible writer, stop writing altogether. They're trying to help you. We hope they
Hmm.
are, and
Yeah.
they honestly want you to be better. So take that to heart when you're taking notes. So don't get upset about anything someone says. They're usually always meaning well with their notes.
I also think when you're giving notes, first of all, you as the person reading the script, you have to know if you have a blind spot. So, for example, I don't know about growing up Jewish, whereas you would know about growing up Jewish because you are. And I think also the best thing you can do when you're giving notes to someone is be very specific. I've gotten notes that were really generic, like, why now? Why this person? What's going on? And I resubmitted it and then I got the same notes. And I was like, I changed a lot. Did you read it? Like, what, and when the notes are too generic, like, oh, I didn't really like that. why? It doesn't help you as a writer grow. So when you're giving notes to people, you need to be very specific.
Hmm. And I've gotten notes, sometimes I've gotten notes where I feel like they didn't quote unquote get it. I think people say that a lot when you give them notes and they don't agree with them. This whole do you get it or not? I think if somebody doesn't get something, um, if I'm giving you a note, it's because I think there's something that really isn't working and it's confusing me. So I have to be, like you said, specific so that you understand. If you don't understand, then what I did in this one case was I had to go back and think about, as someone who doesn't understand the story at all because they haven't written it, what are they trying to tell me? What does this note really say about my script? So when you're giving notes, you have to make sure you're clear as to, um, sometimes you might get hung up on one thing, but you're really talking about another thing.
Yeah, no, totally, totally. So then, how can you be a good notes taker?
Well, the other side of that story is I had somebody who got hung up on a part of my script, and they were like, "Oh, well, this should be more important, and you should do this scene where they go to the Mars and all these other things about Mars." It was a Mars thing, and the story has nothing to do with Mars. It was actually just part of the main character's job. And so to simplify it, kind of like what you did, you made changes to your script based on the notes. I just got rid of the Mars thing because it really didn't matter. And if it was in there and if it was hanging somebody up, if they got hung up on something like that, it obviously wasn't helping the story and it wasn't necessary. So I removed it. The story still is all there. I just had this one little hook that didn't catch people and make them confused. You've probably seen movies where they introduce some idea or character or something early in the movie and then they're gone and they never come back.
Oh,
It's
annoying.
kind of it's kind of like that. If you have something like that in your script, and I think that's what this person got hung up on. Um, I took away the hook so they wouldn't get stuck there. So, in that case, I had to kind of analyze the script and see, like, why did this happen? Because at first I was like, I just thought it didn't matter. It's like, why is he hung up on this? This is crazy. He should just get over it. Well, it's not his job to get over it. He's the reader, or he's the viewer. You have to be the writer to make sure everything moves smoothly through your story so you don't catch your audience up.
Yeah, you don't want them to be thrown out of the story.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think when you're taking notes, you have to understand that people are taking time out of their day to read your script. That is hours that they could have spent working on their own projects. Maybe it's hours they could have spent reading somebody else's script and giving them notes. So if you're going to ask somebody to read your script and give you notes, you should definitely appreciate that. And listen to it with you don't have to take the notes, but just listen to it graciously.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
I once gave notes to somebody who they argued every single point I gave them. And it was a very painful conversation. And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, why did I even bother? I wasted several hours reading your script, poring over it, writing very detailed notes, and then you just wanted to shoot every single thing down. And I kind of was like, I never want to read anyone's script again. I mean, seriously, I walked away from that so upset. And so if you're going to ask somebody for that courtesy, then you need to be gracious, even if you don't agree with what they're saying. Just throw it out later, but at least
Yeah.
recognize they're spending some hard-earned time on that for you.
Yeah, I received notes from someone, and my first inclination with notes, internally is, "Are you out of your mind?" Um, but externally, I try to be neutral. And some people see that as negative or indifferent, but I have to absorb these things and kind of think about them. And at first, I might think it's a horrible idea, or they don't understand, or they don't get it. But then, if you take the notes, internalize them, think about them, reread your own script, and then you can try to see, like I said, from their perspective, what were they getting at? And then suddenly you realize, okay, maybe this makes sense, because you're always going to be very protective of your own project, and that's fine. You can be protective, it's your thing. But like you said, these people are trying to help you make it better, so you have to take the time to try to understand their notes. Now, everyone has their worst note thing ever kind of story. Do you have one of those?
Oh, I was just gonna say, actually, piggybacking off what you were saying, if you're gonna if you're gonna be in this business, and you're going to give people notes and take notes, if you want to be a professional writer, professional anything creative, because anything creative is subjective, you cannot be precious with your work. You really cannot. I used to be very precious with my songs in Nashville. It got beaten out of me. I worked with some amazing songwriters, and if you want to make that album, you can't hold on everything and say this is the best thing ever, and I'm not changing that hook and I'm not changing that lyric. You have to trust that whoever you're working with is a pro. And so it's the same thing. If you get into a writer's room, you can't be precious about your writing. There's something bigger going on, and you have to either fall in line with it and get the job done, or you're not going to have a job.
Good advice.
I mean, I think that's fair, right? So
Yeah,
if you're gonna put anything in the marketplace, there's art, but then there's also it's the entertainment business for a reason. So there's the business side of it. And if you're gonna go into the business side, you have to be willing to put it out there and not be precious with it. Definitely. So yeah,
definitely.
your worst notes story, go for it.
I had somebody rewrite the ending of one of my films. It was an action sci-fi film,
Hmm.
and he put in a, like a time jump of 3 months or something, and then he had the main character doing teleportation experiments with fruit.
With fruit.
Yeah, had nothing to do with anything in the movie. Just I think he was going to. I think he had an idea for a sequel or something that was going to have a totally different story, and he had this a guy blowing up fruit with his teleportation thing, kind of like The Fly, with the Jeff Goldblum Fly movie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just really really weird, and we just all ignored it. Like the director I was working with at the time, and we all just laughed at that. It was just a good. It was funny. And he was a producer, or he wasn't even a producer really. He was a guy who did finance deals and stuff. So he was deciding he was going to rewrite the end of my
Oh
film.
my word.
Yeah, I
That's
think I have it
funny.
somewhere though. It's really funny.
I think for me, the worst, and it wasn't really like the worst, it was just really confusing, was submitting a script and getting notes for it and resubmitting it with major changes and getting the same notes. I was like, I don't understand. I had no idea what I had done wrong.
Did
And
you think like maybe you sent the first draft to them instead of the rewritten
I was
draft?
paranoid about it. Yeah. And I mean, and I remember too, because I rewrote it. I spent 8 hours rewriting it, like one whole day, just typing away at my computer and going nuts on it. And I was floored. And I think maybe the Asian in me was like, oh my gosh, I have failed. What have I done wrong? Because I
Your
was
mother's going to come back and get you.
seriously, because I was getting the same, and I thought maybe they didn't read it, because it was literally the same exact notes. And I just was like, I I suck. That's it. I quit. I don't know what I did wrong.
Do
So
you think your mother's going to like if you ever get an Oscar nomination, she's going to come out and say, "How come you didn't win?"
well, if you win, then why wasn't it two Oscars? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man. So how about for you? What has been your experience being a notes giver and notes taker? Send us your best advice at WG Therapy. You can also find us online at writersgrouptherapy.com. And if you like what you hear, subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll see you next week.